freedom of speech and freedom of conscience are some of the most important liberties that our country is based on. And I will literally go to the wall for those freedoms. And if it came down to it, I would sacrifice my career to stand up for those. And who knows, maybe what I'm doing now is putting my career in harm's way.
Hello everyone, it is so good to be with you, and I'm very excited to present to you today one of the candidates for the CPC leadership race. His name is Derek Sloan, and Derek, I welcome you to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's an honor to have you. And, everybody knows that I ran for the People's Party of Canada, so that's no secret. But what I really have been watching and admired about your stand and your platform, so to speak, is that you really, you have such courage in standing up for social conservative values, and you have made no bones at all about being very strong for those things. And I think that Canada is ready for that. So I was wondering if it's okay with you if I sort of just begin throwing some topics at you, and you tell me, how you feel about all of that. And also, you are currently an MP in what riding?
So my riding is Hastings, Lennox, and Addington. It's east of Toronto in an area called Belleville, Hastings County, and Lennox and Addington counties. So it's kind of between Belleville and Kingston in eastern Ontario.
Okay, and did everyone in your riding know when they, elected you that you were going to put your name forward to become the Prime Minister?
Well, they didn't know, and at the time I didn't know. But after careful thinking and prayer, I decided that now was the time to move forward.
Right. So just before we get into the questions, what sort of led up to that? Because if you weren't really thinking you would do this, what was the moment in your life where you went, I'm not only going to, represent my riding really well, I think I'm going to represent this whole nation. When was that moment? Did you have one particular moment?
I got into politics because I was concerned about religious liberty and freedom of speech and freedom of conscience in this country. I worked for a time as a lawyer. I still am a lawyer, and I was involved in the Trinity Western case, the one at the entry level court in BC for the law school. And I realized throughout my time in law school and working in religious liberty that the law and common sense and even good lawyers may be on your side, but that's not enough. And at that point, I realized that to defend the liberties that we have in Canada, I needed to enter politics. Wow. And when I did that, I realized that the Conservative Party is a natural home for those views, but they need to step it up a notch to be able to win and be the dominant force in Canadian politics.
Well, I think a lot of us were really surprised that the Conservative Party started going so far to the left. Like good candidates, like yourself even, like myself with those same beliefs were not accepted in the Conservative Party. There started to be a real shift. Somehow you skirted that and you're in.
Yeah. So I as a leader, I would be obviously very concerned or supporting of local ridings being able to select a candidate without interference from the top. So I think it's very important that local EDAs, as they're called, get the chance to select and nominate candidates without interference.
Right. I think that would solve a lot, wouldn't it? The freedoms that we think we have are actually really under fire right now.
Yes. So we need a bold free speech platform in this country. And I'll have more to say about that later. So I encourage your viewers to follow me on Facebook. But freedom of speech and freedom of conscience are some of the most important liberties that our country is based on. And I will literally go to the wall for those freedoms. And if it came down to it, I would sacrifice my career to stand up for those. And who knows, maybe what I'm doing now is putting my career in harm's way.
Well, Canada is not the same place that we once thought. Maybe a decade or definitely 2 decades ago, we took a lot of things for granted, and that has been changing. So I very much appreciate what you're saying, because I think what you're saying actually shows that you understand the gravity of it. Sometimes you are sacrificing, a career, or sacrificing yourself because you believe in it so strongly. And yet it seems that some of our leadership in the country does not understand the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of thought and conscience the way that they should. Let's talk about one of the things that has become very volatile. We saw it with Andrew Scheer, constantly asking about his stand. What is your stand on abortion?
So I'm pro-life, and I've made no secret of that fact. I've also said that it's time to have a discussion about abortion and the laws surrounding it, or the lack thereof. And as leader, I would encourage individual MPs to bring forward bills addressing this issue, and we can let parliamentary democracy do its work and have a discussion that other countries have had, but Canada has not.
One of the things that Andrew Scheer was saying is that he wasn't even going to allow the discussion. Basically, he wasn't going to allow other MPs to even put forward. They would not support it. So your stand would be a bit different. You want the discussion. You'd want it to be put out there.
Yeah, and I think that some of Andrew Scheer's messaging was muddled. I don't think he actually meant to say that he would prevent individual MPs from bringing things forward. He did say that as a government, meaning himself and the cabinet, they would work against that or encourage that discussion not to happen. But I think he went too far in saying that. And I read an article this morning which reminded me of a quote where he even said that he would vote against some of this legislation. So I would vote my conscience on any abortion legislation, and I would encourage the rest of the caucus to vote their conscience, and I would encourage anyone to bring forward a bill that was important to them.
Right. That's what we need in our country. Derek, a lot was made also in the last, in the last sort of race with Andrew about the fact that he wasn't going to march in the Pride Parade. And, a lot of us out here, we wouldn't take our family to the Pride Parade because they have naked people, and I mean, there's a lot of just simple things that are, kind of difficult about the Pride Parade. What's your stand on that?
So I won't be marching in a Pride Parade, and I've said that. It's funny that has become the political litmus test of the year, and I won't be jumping through any hoops that the media is imposing on the Conservative Party. And you're right, there's reasons why some people may want to attend a Pride Parade and why some would not. And I have said that I will not be doing that, and that won't change either over the course of this.
There are people now, starting with Randy Boissonnault before he was unelected in the last election, but he was going from municipality to municipality and trying to get these conversion therapy bans put in, which in essence, I've been talking a lot about it, but in essence, it takes away the simple opportunity for counseling for somebody who's struggling with a sexual orientation or a gender confusion. What is your stand on the conversion therapy bans?
Yeah, I think they're overbroad, and depending on if we're talking about municipal bans or other bans, they're an overreach into personal liberties and freedom of religion. I think in reference to the Senate bill that we're talking about, yes, there's a big concern. S202. Yeah, so S202, there's a big concern here because many kids who identify as trans end up, by the time they reach adulthood, identifying as something else. The bulk of them end up being happy with the body that they were born with, or identifying with their birth sex. I think it's problematic when we have kids who identify as trans, and many of them end up growing out of that, to say that the only thing we can do is encourage them to undergo irreversible medical treatment. So whether that be hormone puberty blockers or surgery, many of these kids end up growing out of this. This is not something that's controversial. All of the medical associations and psychological associations admit that a bulk of kids end up being happy with the body they're born in. Some of them end up identifying as gay or lesbian. Some end up identifying as straight and being happy with the body that they're born in. So to say that there's something wrong with some type of counseling to see what's going on, or just waiting and seeing, the idea that we should be pushing these kids or promoting this type of therapy to children, I believe, is what amounts to a medical experiment that 10 or 20 years from now, we're going to see lawsuits from these kids against the government, against these organizations that have pushed us. You know, when it comes to adults, we live in a free country, right? And they can make the choices and decisions that they want to. But kids are kids, and they need to be given, you know, extra care and concern. And we need to remember that parents have a concern and a duty to help and aid their children, and we need to respect those rights as well.
You know, this year we had our first detransitioning conference, and these are people with very difficult stories. You know, women who now have beards and deep voices, who say that was a bad idea, that I, you know, wanted to become a guy and I've changed my mind now.
You're right. And what you just mentioned, that's part of the conversation. That's not going to be everybody's story, but that is a story, and that story deserves to be told. And I got an email from someone after I was on Evan Solomon. And it's interesting, I got a variety of emails from many people, but I got emails from the LGBT community. And they were essentially all positive. One person wrote me and said that she wasn't sure what was going on with her right now, but when she was younger, she was given puberty blockers, and she felt that had been a mistake, and she wasn't entirely sure how she identified right now. I thanked her for her letter, and I encouraged her to continue to search and to do what she felt was best for her. She did express a concern that she'd been given this treatment when she was younger, and she felt that it had been a negative for her.
Wow. Well, thank you. When we have a 4,500% increase in gender clinic referrals worldwide, and Canada is also, it's way up. All the schools, parents are writing and saying that there just seems to be such a focus on our sexuality.
Yeah, and you know, you make a good point. The amount of kids that are identifying as trans and being referred is much higher now than it was even 10 years ago. So we have to ask ourselves, to what degree are we encouraging this? And to what degree is our education and other systems, you know, planting these ideas in kids' minds? And I saw an interview that you had done with a gentleman that's having his own court case. And it seemed to me that, according to his story, he felt that his child was actively encouraged on this, and that ideas were put into their mind, and that was at least part of the reason why this was occurring in that case.
You're absolutely right. And encourage behind a parent's back. So parental rights.
Yeah, I mean, in that particular case, it's astounding to me that the government can force a medical treatment, an irreversible medical treatment, that will leave this young child sterilized for the rest of her life against the will of her guardian, her parent, her father. I mean, we can think of other times in history when that has happened, and that was not a good time. I'm thinking of 1930s Germany and some other situations where we had forced sterilizations and things of that nature. And I think that this is very frightening. A child who is too young to drive, to buy alcohol, to vote, can choose to undergo a medical treatment which is irreparable and will significantly impact them for the rest of their life. I think that this should be a concern to anyone, whatever their political stripe or belief.
Well, I thank you for being willing to speak on that. And Canada waits for leadership that will speak to the grassroots issues of things that are really at the heart of every family right now, because this is impacting families, and families we know. Like, we're all being impacted by this. Thank you for having that courage. Let's begin to talk about some issues like the debt. Where do you stand fiscally on the debt that Canada has incurred? And do you have a plan whereby we might get that under control?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. we do have a problem with debt, both individually, provincially, federally in Canada. And we have to learn to address that. And the way to do that is to get the economy going again. And we've seen an assault on our natural resource sectors in many provinces, particularly BC and Alberta. And, you know, the natural resource sector is the backbone of our economy. Many, many jobs in banking and the legal industry and manufacturing are related to resources. Natural resources are God's gift to Canada. We need to make sure we get them to market and get a market price for them. We also need to make sure that we have a tax policy in this country that's competitive with the United States, for example. We can't expect entrepreneurs and other highly skilled business people to want to live in Canada when we're not competitive on a tax basis with other countries. But I think what we need to do is get the economy back on track again and make Canada recognized as a safe and stable place to do business.
One of the things that when we look at foreign aid, you know, there's a lot of money being paid out for things, you know, to help the rest of the world. While if you come to my city, and I hope that you will be coming on your tour of Canada, but I can take you to Maine and Hastings, and I can show you people that are really poverty stricken and they're homeless. So we seem to be able to help with millions, even billions of dollars in foreign aid and not take care of our own land. And that's a concern to a lot of Canadians.
Yeah, we have to put Canadians first. And I think Canada does, as a wealthier country, have a duty of responsibility to help other countries. But we don't have a duty to pay $750 million or even more than that to fund foreign abortions and to do things that other countries find illegal and divisive, and essentially tie that funding for abortion to other help that country might need. I think that's unfair. And it's a type of a colonialism in a way. We know what's better, we know what's best, and if you want help from us, you're going to have to play by our rules. So there's ways, obviously, that we can do our foreign aid much better. But you're right, we have to focus on problems that we have here in Canada. And I think that the conditions in some of our cities, in some of our rural towns, and on some of our reserves can be quite shocking. And we need to make sure that we're addressing those issues here at home.
Excellent. And so a lot of our funding goes into, there was quite a few million that went into climate issues in Africa. Overall, what do you feel about climate?
I think the Conservative Party needs to stake out ground that is distinctly separate from the Liberals when it comes to the environment and climate. I think there's essentially two camps. One is an alarmist camp that says if we don't do things very fast and in a way that might be, and it will be damaging to the economy, the world is going to end. I think the other ground that Conservatives need to stake out is anti-alarmist, but pro-conservation. There's a lot of ideas that involve direct ways of improving air quality, soil quality, water quality. And these are the types of things that we need to bring forward. To me, and to many other Conservatives, a carbon tax is not an environmental plan, it's a tax plan. And so what the Conservative Party needs to do is bring forward some great ideas that involve making for cleaner air, soil, and water. We had some of those in our last plan, but we didn't explain to people that this is a bad alarmist plan, but it's a good environmental plan. Essentially what we said was, we have a plan too, and we don't deny any of these things, and our plan is better. But we didn't distinguish where we were coming from, and I think that people lost sight of the difference in the approach. And I think that we can sell that approach to Canadians. I think that if Canadians see a party that has bold ideas to deal with all issues facing Canadians, so the economy, but also poverty, right, and also healthcare, and also some of these other concerns, I think that they will gravitate to that party. Canadians tend to choose a natural governing party. And I think that if we give them that option, they will choose us.
One of the things that is going on as well in the Conservative Party is that it seems like they kind of coronate their chosen leader, the people in the top, rankings. And Peter MacKay has said some pretty disturbing things to a lot of people. Do you have anything to say on that?
Well, the interesting thing is that even if the media likes a candidate, or even if a majority of MPs like a candidate, that doesn't matter very much. It's the party base that makes the final decision. So I would encourage your voters to get a Conservative Party membership as fast as they can before April 17th, and they will have just as much a say as anybody else in who becomes the next leader of the party. So if a MP wishes to support Peter MacKay, they may have some influence amongst people in their riding, but they only have one vote. And if one of your viewers signs up today to be a member, they have just as much a vote as myself or any other MP in determining who the next leader of the party will be. So I encourage them to get involved. And I trust in the grassroots of the party, who does not care what the media says and who can be trusted to make this selection. So whatever the media is saying right now, whatever other leaders may be saying, the grassroots will have their say, and I fully trust them to make the best decision.
Derek, what are your thoughts on immigration? How do you have a platform on immigration yet?
So we will be releasing a full immigration plan at some point in our campaign. I can say that I am against illegal immigration, and we need to have an immigration platform and plan that works for Canada. And I'll go even further to hint that the plan needs to be one that encourages people to settle the entire country, much like we had earlier on in our country's history, and not just to congregate in certain large city areas.
And one of the things that people are feeling that they can't raise an alarm about, being a politically correct country, is that we're concerned about those who may not have the best intentions, those who may come from other places, and they don't actually adhere to the freedom of Canadian thought, to a democracy, but rather might have intentions that would not be good for Canada in 10 to 15 years. Do you believe there needs to be good protective measures to protect our democracy in the way that we love Canada, being a free place that offers freedom to all, freedom of religion for all, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience for all? Some people do not necessarily have that framework in their mind, and they want to come and live here.
Well, there's a lot of liberals that have been here for a long time that believe those same things. So the issue is, and one of them is running the country right now. So
right.
The issue is really having a robust legal protection for freedom of speech and freedom of conscience. And you will see that from my camp, and you'll see that very soon. There is room for greater security screening in the immigration process, but the most important thing is to have robust legal protections for freedom of speech, and you will see that from my campaign.
Well, that is wonderful. And if people would like to support your campaign, what is the best way to do that?
Thank you for asking. So in the next month, I have to raise approximately $300,000 to stay in this race. And I know I can do it, but I'm going to need the help from people all across the country. And it will send a message to the party leadership that candidates like myself are not going anywhere. And if I don't make it, it'll also send the message that, you know what, social conservatives don't really matter and their voice is dwindling. If you would like to help me stay in this race, stand up for the freedoms that have made Canada great, you can do so. My website is www.dereksloan.ca, DEREKSLOAN.ca. You can donate there. There's generous tax credits for doing so. You can also become a member through my site of the party. I encourage you to do that and to share this with your friends. We need to make a statement, and we need to do it now.
Derek, I've really enjoyed speaking with you today. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the Conservative constituents in this nation and anybody else from any other party as to why, that they might consider Derek Sloan?
I'm the only candidate that's talking about these issues, that's going to the wall on these issues. And I encourage you to get involved and send a message that this type of candidate and these types of views are important to Canadians and that they must have a part in the national discussion. I want to fight for the issues that are important to you and are important to Canadians. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Derek, I have to say that it's really inspiring to see this kind of courage and this kind of boldness coming from somebody who's running for the leadership of the Conservative Party. It gives all of us hope that our nation is going to have someone who is very strong and understands the real issues that we're all facing. And I wish you well. God bless. Thanks for taking this time to talk to me today.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Derek. Bye-bye.